My grandmother, every Saturday morning, we had to go to the farmer's market. We had to shuffle peas. We go to the farm to get a trunk load of chickens.
Come on, give me some love.
You sleep high.
No, I was working. What's up?
Hey.
You all right?
I'm good.
All right, all right. You staying out of trouble, huh?
Yes, sir.
All right,
I don't
all
like
right.
trouble.
Trouble is easy to get into, but it's hard to get out of.
Baby, and we got spaghetti for dinner. Honey, this is just a tip of the iceberg of pictures. I still have tubs and tubs of pictures.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Duane, my oldest brother, right here. Right there. Wow. Some old pictures there. That's me, Duane. Lord have mercy.
Out of all my stepsisters and brothers, Duane and I was the closest.
Duane have always been a loving, compassionate brother, you know, have always been that type of person. So it was a big shock, you know. I remember my parents had went to Louisiana for the weekend, and all my siblings and everybody was at the house. We had just got through eating dinner, and I think the breaking news came on at 5 o'clock. We heard Duane Buck. To me, it was unbelievable because we had just, you know, he had just left the house.
When I heard about it, it really kind of gets like, wow, and tears started screaming out my face. I couldn't believe it.
You know that's your brother, you know, see the police putting him in handcuffs, but, you know, you never think it would be one of your family members. I picked up the phone, I said, Mom, y'all need to come home.
July 30th, 1995. Duane came to his ex-girlfriend, Deborah Gardner's home with a shotgun, apparently very high. He found other gentlemen, as well as his stepsister, Phyllis, at the apartment. Some sort of verbal altercation ensued, and he shot Phyllis, shot the gentleman who was there, and shot Deborah Gardner, his ex-girlfriend.
I saw the door fly open, and Duane walked up to me and stood in front of me and placed a gun in my chest. I reminded him of the good that him and I shared in life and just trying to talk down the gun. He didn't look like himself. He looked like somebody I've never seen before, and he pulled the trigger.
We had eyewitnesses, and very compelling eyewitnesses. It didn't take long for a guilty verdict to come back.
The state has to prove that the person who's been convicted of capital murder is likely to commit crimes in the future in order to get the death penalty. So this becomes a pivotal part of the sentencing phase of a trial.
At punishment, the defense introduced this witness, Dr. Walter Quijano. Dr. Quijano testified that Mr. Buck wouldn't be a future danger. However, on cross-examination, he made a comment about Mr. Buck's race. The prosecution said, "Isn't it true that Mr. Buck's race makes him more dangerous?" And the answer was yes.
Do you remember when Dr. Quijano testified at trial?
Yes.
Did you remember that specific question when he talked about you being more likely to be a danger because you're black?
Yeah. And I felt that was strange because my lawyer didn't say nothing, and nobody else, you know, the prosecutor or the judge, and nobody did. It's like it was an everyday thing in the court.
You just had an expert literally saying people who are black are more dangerous. There was no attempt to clean up or pretty the racial discrimination in this case. Unfortunately, that bias and that burden that is placed on people of color who come through the criminal justice system is disturbingly common.
Years go by and ineffective lawyer after ineffective lawyer waived claims regarding the racial testimony in his case. So this is how we end up 15 years later litigating for Mr. Buck's life.
The state of Texas wants to tell you it's the right result that he was sentenced to death, but they did it the wrong way. Even though it was very clear from the outset that Duane had committed this crime, that he was guilty, racist conclusions have no place in the criminal justice system. You were this leader at a time when a lot of people might have been not so willing to speak out on behalf of a death row inmate.
If we're going to have the death penalty in America, it ought not be reserved for people who are poor. And, you know, a lot of times when these issues, somebody's income is determining whether or not they're going to get the death penalty.
That's true.
Oftentimes, the person who is picked by the court, by the judge, to represent a poor person in cases like this is someone who does not get the adequate resources to defend the case. Criminal justice is clearly the new civil rights. But the inherent racism and unfairness in the criminal justice system is really a national embarrassment. And Texas is ground zero for that embarrassment. This is the historic 5th Ward in Houston, Texas. It's a place where you have a lot of abandoned homes in the neighborhood, a lot of weeded lots, problem in terms of burglaries, crime, schools are declining. It's also a place where a disproportionate number of the young people, unfortunately, end up getting trapped in the criminal justice system. It's also a place where people feel as though they've been profiled, they've been neglected. We have one of the highest incarceration rates in the country. Disproportionate number of those people are black. A disproportionate number of them are low income.
Ever since we were little, me and my brother, we always working on cars, body work, mechanic work. And Duane was my role model. You know, before he started getting on the drugs and all that, he was always there with us. Always we can call on our big brother at any given time. But the drugs take you to a place where it don't even be you. Our house was the house that everybody came to. We built it up and we tried to help the people. We did mechanic work here, and my mom, she cooked. If you was hungry, you can come and get something to eat. It's still here, so every time I pass by it, it's a bunch of memories go through my head, but good memories, you know, it was good memories and a few bad memories, but most of all, we came together as a family and worked through our difficulties.
Deciding whether or not someone's going to receive a life sentence, the jury considers whether or not there's mitigating evidence, which is there evidence that warrants a life sentence over a death sentence? Is there anything that gives you pause as a juror? Duane's life was something that the defense never explored in terms of mitigation.
He had a very traumatic life history. When you can present a picture of a human being that shows that they are unique and flawed, that influences jurors to impose life sentences. And so that should have been presented, but unfortunately for Mr. Buck, it was not.
There really wasn't much discussion of how his drug use affected him before the jury. Duane would not be the only guy in Texas who faced a death sentence after using Fry, which is marijuana dipped in formaldehyde. The drug was thought to cause psychotic effects.
My heart breaks because of the drug that was used in the crime, the Fry. Yeah. It is aggressive, and my
You try
thing
it one
is,
time and you get hooked. With everything's going on right now with the Black Lives Matters and stuff like that, I think Duane's case is just a way to heal the wounds and try to make it better. So we got to just look forward and work diligently to try to get Duane a fairness of a new trial and, you know, everything from beginning, like it should have been in '95. I remember when Duane actually got the execution date, Kate called me because we talk at least once a week. And she said, Monique, she said, I want to let you know that Duane got an execution date and it's going to be September the 15th, 2011.
Someone called me to ask if I would like to witness the execution and if I would like to be on the victim side. And I said no. I didn't want to be on the victim side. I wanted to be on the family side. It was the hardest thing of my life to forgive someone that tried to take my life, but I know who he is.
We were still litigating Duane's case on the day of his execution. Around 3 p.m., I drove up to Huntsville, which is where the executions take place, and I went to see him and to tell him, we still haven't yet heard, but I want you to prepare yourself for the fact that we might not win.
When it got close, we talked to Duane on the phone till about around 5-ish, and we prayed and we prayed and we prayed.
Even though we don't live in slavery days anymore, a lot of injustices that took place back then are still taking place now. And I just want, you know, in his trial, I want it to be a fair trial. I don't want race to even be an involvement. He's expressed remorse for the things he's done.
For 20 plus years, Duane been on death row. He never ever had one incident with anybody, whether it's an inmate, a guard. And this is coming from the warden, the major, and the lieutenant.
Even being able to talk to Duane
Yes.
a couple hours before he was to be executed. I'm saying to myself, well, I'm the preacher. I'm the one that should be preaching. Duane's
Correct.
not the preacher. But he was preaching to me.
So I think it was 5 or 10 minutes before 6. Kate called me on the phone. She said, Monique, we got good news. We got to stay at execution. Yeah.
I never witnessed anything like that.
I remember when we got the stay, we were thrilled. But how were we going to keep Duane alive if the Supreme Court dissolved the stay? We started to discuss a strategy. We realized that we had to talk seriously to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund.
When the case was pending there in the Supreme Court, they reached out to me and LDF to see whether we would join them in defending Mr. Buck from that point forward. Once we really learned about the egregious racial discrimination that Mr. Buck faced, we immediately jumped at the opportunity to help Mr. Buck and fight for his life.
This case really is above and beyond the pale with respect to seeing someone facing execution because of the color of their skin.
I remember Kate coming into my office and saying, "You're not going to believe this, but the prosecutor in this case is willing to come forward and say this was wrong and that Duane deserves a new fair sentencing trial."
I read what was posted by the Texas defenders on Duane Buck's case, and when I saw it in black and white, as opposed to being in the hustle and bustle of the trial, it just took me back, and I thought, that is constitutional error.
She decided that it was, in fact, her role as a lawyer, as a human being, as a member of the bar, to correct a wrong.
The jury heard things that not only are racist, they're factually incorrect. We made a mistake. The system made a mistake. And I have been on board ever since.
So we have a date, October 5th. It'll be 30 minutes for each side.
If the court were to somehow tie, that would uphold the decision of the Fifth Circuit, which is not a favorable decision. So there are risks.
You know, should we be lucky enough to get this before a jury again, and I think that he would be sentenced to life.
Our obligation is to get him this new fair sentencing trial, and we're going to get there. We are going to get there.
We'll hear argument next today in Case 15-8049, Buck versus Davis. Ms. Swarns?
Mr. Chief Justice, and may it please the court, Duane Buck was condemned to death after his own court-appointed trial attorneys knowingly introduced an expert opinion that he was more likely to commit criminal acts of violence in the future because he is black.
Justice Alito today said that introducing this evidence in Mr. Buck's capital sentencing hearing is indefensible. Texas has acknowledged that it has no interest in a death sentence, like no state has an interest in a death sentence that's contaminated by racial bias. We hope that the Supreme Court with this decision makes clear that the lower courts cannot turn a blind eye
to explicit racial discrimination of this kind and recognizes that those kind of errors must be addressed.
I'm honored to be able to go to the Supreme Court as a voice for someone to give fair justice.
How confident are you that the Supreme Court will rule in his favor?
I'm praying it does. No matter who you are, what color you are, we all deserve a fair justice system. And I'm just grateful to God.
When you do death penalty work, you're confronted with all of the ways that the system is grossly unfair. It's unfair to people who are poor. It's unfair to people of color.
This case is just an example of the kinds of problems that we're seeing every day.
This is just one. He's a really big example, but he's just one. And there are lots more behind him.
I want to lift those who are incarcerated today. If you know somebody who's incarcerated, I'm going to ask you to come to the altar now. It may be your son, it may be your daughter, it may be your brother, it may be your father, it may be your mother. But I want them to be lifted to the Lord today. There's a young man by the name of Duane Buck who's on death row. This family has fought this thing all the way, and it's now in the hands of the Supreme Court. Mr. Marvin Buck, if he would come and pray for those who are incarcerated.
Right now, God, they're behind prison walls each and every day, God. So we lift up every family members, God. We lift up Duane Buck before you right now, God. We lift up the Supreme Court right now, God.
This thing is bigger than us. We got to get to the root of the problem to solve the problem.
Everybody, we just coming together as one unit, and we know our sole purpose is to make sure Duane get the fairness that he deserves.
Hey, baby.
How you doing?
Somebody else I do know.
This is Duane's lawyer.
Oh, it is?
This is his lawyer.
When I say my gift from God, this is the woman I'm talking about, right here.
We all know the crime was committed, but no one deserves to be punished according to their race.